Hello, my name is Lauren Hughes. I'm a Deputy Director at the Nuclear Energy Policy Initiative at the Atlantic Council Global Energy Center. And I am joined by Tatsuya Terazawa, the President and CEO of the Institute of Energy Economics Japan. Terazawa-san, thank you so much for joining us today from this live from COP28 interview in the COP28 Green Zone on day 9 in the Global Decarbonization Accelerator.
Well, thank you very much, Lauren. It is my pleasure and honor to be able to participate in this live interview.
And for our audience who may not be as familiar with IEJ, can you tell us a little bit about your organization and how it assesses Japan moving toward carbon neutrality?
Okay, well, IEJ was established in 1966, so it's nearly 60 years old. And it is an energy think tank covering every aspect of energy, as well as climate policy and also geopolitics, including Middle East. So I think it is unique in that regard. To be more specific, we issue a long-term global outlook for energy demand and supply, which is really rare among independent research institutes. And we do look at the global situation, as well as Asia, as well as Japan. And the question was about how do we see Japan? Certainly, Japan is committed to realize carbon neutrality, and our pledge is to realize carbon neutrality by 2060. And our NDC is to reduce our GHG emission by 46% by 2030. But frankly, this is a very, very challenging goal to be achieved. Japan faces a number of constraints. One is renewable energies. Japan is a small island country, and 70% of our land are mountains. So if we look at the flat land, it's just 30% of a very small island country where 120 million people live.
Yes.
So the installment of solar panels will have to compete with the land use, other land use. We are surrounded by waters, so people may think that we may have offshore wind power generation, but unfortunately the sea surrounding Japan goes deep right away. You're right, seabed, steep. So the bottom fixed type wind power generation, which is the mainstream of offshore wind power generation, would have very limited potential. So in order to expand renewable energies, we have to develop the floating type wind power generation, which is still not widely available. Having said so, to realize our pledge, we have to do everything. We have to expand our renewable energies. We have to do much better in energy efficiency. And now Prime Minister Kishida decided to push nuclear again. And also for the hard-to-abate sectors, hard-to-electrify sectors, Japan has been the pioneer in the world to push for hydrogen ammonia as a solution to decarbonize the hard-to-abate sectors. So we have to do everything to address the challenges that we are facing.
And I think Japan is an example of how you're looking at an all of the above approach. I was so happy to hear you talk about some of the challenges of geography. I think similarly to the situation in the United States, there are also the challenges in terms of transmission and distribution. And I don't know if that will also, will slow down sort of that progress in the future with, the 3 interconnections and the 50 hertz and 60 hertz grid.
For those who are not knowledgeable about the situation, although Japan is a small island country, the frequency of electricity is split at the middle of my country. There's a 50 hertz region and 60 hertz region.
Yes.
The background is that when we imported technology from the West, one side got the technology from the US, the other got the technology from Europe.
Right.
So that's the reason why we have 2 separate grid systems within Japan. So that has made the interconnection in Japan relatively weak. In addition, we have had 9 regionally monopolized power companies historically, and they had developed their grids to support their own regional power demand. So the interconnection among those 9 regional power companies have been relatively weak. And that will present a problem for us because Tokyo and Osaka are heavily populated, but we do have the northern island of Hokkaido or the southern island of Kyushu, where we relatively have much more space. So we can have more renewable energies installed. But if even if we try to generate renewable energies in Kyushu or Hokkaido, you have to send the power to Tokyo or Osaka. And that would require the construction of transmission lines. And maybe the renewable energies are good for the planet, but the people living nearby the route of the transmission lines may be opposed. So it will be expensive and it will take time, but we have to do that to expand renewable energy in Japan.
Particularly given the scope of that challenge that
Right.
is required.
We have to do everything,
Yes.
including the difficult challenges.
Yes, absolutely. And to bring back, to widen the aperture back sort of to the global level and where we are at COP28, what do you hope to see come out of the remainder of this year's COP?
Well, already I've seen many positive developments that I'm feeling at this COP28. And the one word will be inclusivity. I can talk about three inclusiveness. The first is to be more inclusive of various industries. I noted with positive surprise that the oil and gas companies are now invited to this COP28. And actually, I visited the pavilion of OPEC. And this is the first time that OPEC had its own pavilion at the COP event. So now I think there is a recognition that oil and gas companies could be part of the solution, which was not the case in the previous COP. So that's inclusivity number one. Inclusivity number two is that I had a chance to have conversations with people from the Global South, such as from Africa. And they told me that this is the most inclusive COP for them, for the Global South. One tangible achievement is the establishment of a loss and damage fund. There were so many talks about this, but this is the actual establishment with real money. So that would lead to my argument that the inclusivity is expanded in this COP28, including the inclusivity of the people from the Global South. The third inclusivity is that at this COP28, there was a pledge among the like-minded countries to triple the capacity for nuclear. The international press is covering the tripling of the capacity for renewable energies, but there is also a pledge to triple the capacity for nuclear. And also, I'm hearing many more discussions about CCS or CCUS to have carbon management. In the past COPs, these nuclear or CCUS could have been out of the agenda, but now those nuclear and CCUS are part of the discussion. So it's the third inclusivity of having various technologies. And I think these three inclusivities reflects the need to deploy everything and have everyone participate to deal with this very tremendous, monumental challenge.
I was so glad to hear you mention the global stocktake. And I think that builds on the predicate laid by the Kyoto Protocol almost 25 years ago to make that more inclusive. And also that you touched on how this COP is technology inclusive. It is all of the above because we need to do everything all at once as quickly as possible to catch up.
Sure.
But I think in closing, how can we galvanize this diverse group of stakeholders, the inclusive group of stakeholders?
Well, you have to talk about every aspect of inclusivity, but I will focus on just one aspect. Looking at the CO2 emission, the vast majority of CO2 emission in the next decades will be coming from the emerging and developing countries. So, because they are growing and their living standards are going up, so it's natural that their demand for energy will grow. That will lead to more emission of CO2. So if we are to succeed in realizing carbon neutrality globally, it is very important to succeed in the decarbonization of the emerging and developing countries. Japan is located in Asia. We have had strong historical relationship with the countries in Southeast Asia, especially the ASEAN countries. We are committed to work with our friends in Southeast Asia to work together to realize decarbonization in this part of the world. And based on this recognition, Prime Minister Kishida of Japan is now promoting the vision for AZEC, Asia Zero Emissions Community. And under this AZEC vision, Japan is committed to work with our friends in the ASEAN region and together with Australia to work together to realize carbon neutrality in this region while supporting the economic growth of the region, while supporting the energy security of that region. And that's where we are committed to work together. And that's part of the global inclusivity that we attach great importance.
I'm so glad to hear you talk about, the clean transformation and development occurring together in tandem. And also, you've made such a strong case for doing this with our partners and allies all together in an inclusive manner. I'm so glad, Terazawa-san, that we were allowed to include this interview with you in our Live from COP28 program.
Well, thank you very much
fantastic insights
for including me in this fantastic interview.
Oh, thank you so much.